Welcome to the Coffin Table Podcast, where we breathe new life into films thought dead and buried. I'm fresh-eyed film fan Anita Dirtnap.
And I am film historian, horror host, and undead aficionado, Sir Cophagus. I've dug up the best and worst and most bizarre that Hollywood has to offer, so grab enough coffee to wake up the dead. This is the Coffin Table Podcast.
Alright, so today we have found footage movie, Always Watching. Tell me, Sir Cophagus, have you ever heard of the tale of Slender Man?
I to be honest with you, Anita, my dear, I know a little bit about SCP, and that's about the extent of it. I've seen the Halloween character, but outside of that, no. This is entirely not my forte. I don't know a thing about it. So, watching this film was rather unique because I was getting lore that apparently existed about a character that I knew nothing about. So, I'll give it that. If nothing else, it exposed me to something that I was not familiar with.
Yeah. So, for those of us who grew up with the internet back in the early 2000s,
Oi!
You might be familiar with a site called Creepypasta. And this site was basically your gateway into the genre of horror and horror stories. Now, Slenderman made a huge splash back in the day, to the point where he's had several games made, a couple of movies. I'm pretty sure there's documentaries, like fake documentaries on it. It became a huge pop culture thing. And it was all because of this one creator who edited a couple of photos to have this strange man with no face standing in the background wearing a suit. And so I thought, well, hey, why not show my dinosaur of a friend here what it's like?
Gee, thanks.
You're welcome.
No, seriously. This was, as you said, I'm not aware of creepypasta. I know a very, very little. I know Slender Man, and I know of Jeff the Killer, but I could not pull him out of a lineup. I know of other creatures, but I'll rephrase that. I know that other creatures exist, but I don't actually know anything about them. To me, creepypasta is what was actually used more to talk about just creepy things on the internet. I was not aware that it was an entire genre unto itself. So anytime something spooky happened on the internet, I always thought that was a synonym for creepypasta, referring to some website that I had never gone to. So that was my extent of it. Like I said, I'm somewhat familiar with SCP Foundation, which is kind of apparently the same thing, but not really, because they're two different things entirely, even though they both had video games made about them. But that's the extent of my knowledge when it comes to this stuff.
Yeah, so Creepypasta was basically this website that people could go and create these stories. You know, like Jeff the Killer, Slenderman, there was a couple others of them out there as well. It was just something that people could be creative with. You know, it wasn't like a set backstory of the actual site itself. It was just people going there and uploading these horror stories. So I was a big Slenderman fan because growing up, Like I said before, it was a gateway into this community, and Slenderman was one of the more prominent figures of it.
Okay. Yeah, no, I've seen, the occasional animatic and things of that involve him. More often than not, it's stuff like apparently the original photos, and I'm sure that there are other photos since then that have been photoshopped in a world where AI photography and drawings and illustrations and things exist. I'm sure there are even more now than there were beforehand. But yeah. But outside of that, this was my first experience with Slenderman, with this marble hornets, which that's a very strange name in amongst itself. This was originally a YouTube series. Is that what I'm understanding out of this?
Yeah, so there was a couple of videos that was made on YouTube. Were made. What is English? It was made on YouTube, along with the photos being passed around and everything like that, just to deepen the lore of Slenderman. And always watching the movie that we're going to be talking about today is a Marble Hornet story. So it's an adaptation of that original story, which I think, the fact...
Okay. See, I was not... Okay.
Yeah, so the fact that it went from just a couple of pictures being passed around that were done on Photoshop to movies being made and a video game, like several video games, it became a huge part of the internet history.
So, okay. See, I was not aware that this was an adaptation of the things that were happening in the YouTube series.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that this was just something in the same vein of. So, okay. That's actually really interesting. Well, okay. So we've gotten kind of the backstory out of the way, or the where this thing came from. Let's talk about the movie. I'll tell you right now, found footage is not my cup of tea. I did enjoy the original Blair Witch for what it was, although the mockumentary that came around the same time, actually, I found that more terrifying than the film itself.
Mm-hmm.
So, outside of that, the found footage to me has always been a very niche genre that I've never really found the appeal to for myself. Like, I understand why people like it.
Yeah.
It's never struck a chord with me, and that's what this was. This was a found footage film.
Yeah, it was found footage, and it was done in such a way that I think they overused the found footage aspect of it. Now, when it comes to found footage films, this was done in 2016, I want to say, 2016, 2015. This was, I find, the height of the found footage movies. You had Paranormal Activity coming out. You had the success of Blair Witch, the original one, before they did the remake a couple years down the road. So I think this was just hopping on that style of filming. And unfortunately, I do believe that they overdid it with this. It's done in a way that for a fact nobody would be filming these sequences the way that they did.
Yes, there was a few times where where the main character sets the camera up in order to record himself watching recordings.
Yeah, like the whole point.
And that's the antithesis of natural.
The whole point of Slenderman is you can't see him with your naked eye. You need to have a electronic of some sort, a video camera, phone, security cameras, things like that. You can't see him normally. And even before these characters knew that they were being hunted by something, like you said, the main character was filming him watching these recordings, which nobody would ever do, especially hours upon hours of footage. That is good footage that you are wasting, that you now have to go in and edit out of. And it's unrealistic. And that kind of took away for me, because you're just watching these boring scenes, the same boring scenes over and over again.
Yes, and I wouldn't mind it if it was a Blair Witch situation where it's a bunch of goofy college kids who are out in the middle of the woods and they're going, oh, well, let's look over here and do this thing. And they leave the camera on because they're goofy college kids, and so you get a couple of accidental recording blurs. But these are supposed to be newscasters. These are supposed to be TV reporters. And yet the main character, who is the cameraman, will constantly leave the film running. Constantly. I think the most egregious sin of the entire film, well, at least for me, is whenever he sets up the camera, very clearly sets up the camera in the bar, and then proceeds to talk to his two coworkers with the camera rolling on them. And it's, why would you do that? What would possess you to do that? Why would you even bring, if this is supposed to be the same camera from that you use for recording the news, what would possess you to set it up, take it out of its case, take it out of the van, bring it into the bar, set it up, and then have it record you guys? It was so artificially done that it truly irked me. That's the word I'm going to use. Irk. It irked.
Yeah, I mean, like,
so,
not only that, but setting it up while he's driving, setting it up, in these places that you just would not set it up in these situations. And as you said, a cameraman should know better than to waste footage like that, realistically. But this movie is far from realistic, so.
Yeah, sadly it is.
So we have this.
Yeah, so there's other that.
So we have this found footage movie that, it's clearly set up in the first few seconds that it's a found footage movie. What the intriguing concept is for me is that it is Slenderman. Because, with the success of the game and the success of the creepypasta story, you kind of want to expect something good out of this. You want to expect that they took this story and they breathed new life into it, and they, did not disregard lore, or they did not change anything fundamentally or things like that. Which I will say, like, the big thing about Slenderman, you can't see him with your naked eye. They kept that in. They changed what he's called, apparently. What was it, the operator or something like that?
Actually, no. Yeah, no. Yes, it was the operator. Actually, apparently that is an alternate title for this film, is the operator, which is hilarious because you never see him operating anything. He doesn't look like an operator, and they never actually mention him by name one time ever. He's not even a thing. He is the guy. It's that guy again. They never refer to him as a creature. They never refer to him as anything outside of, there he is, there's the guy.
Yeah, which would make sense.
I think they do refer to him as the thing like once or twice, but it's like, what is that thing? And more like that as an adjective as opposed to a title. That's really about it, as far as memory serves. I could be mistaken in that, but I don't think they ever name drop him once.
No, which I mean is understandable when you're dealing with something that you don't know the origins of or the actual name of. You're not going to just suddenly be like, oh, yeah, I'm going to call that Slenderman. No, you're going to call it whatever is fitting the theme of what's going on. That guy, that guy in that suit's back, just things like that. You're not going to give it a name. Which, I mean,
yeah.
so...
No, yeah,
it's forgivable for that, for not giving an actual name to Slenderman, because realistically speaking, you wouldn't know what to call it.
Mm-hmm. And this is actually the actor in question. His name is Chris Marquette, who plays the main character, and this is not his first rodeo with supernatural creatures. Apparently, he's the same gentleman is that in Freddy versus Jason. He actually winds up being one of the final survivors of the infamous Battle of Monsters. He makes it to the climax of the film. It's an old enough film. Technically, I should spoil it, but I'm not. Um, uh, and he's the quasi nerdy guy, clearly very young, and then this is 10 years after that, so he's a little older, and I honestly didn't recognize him at first, but there was one or two lines that he would deliver that I go, I know you from something. And that actually happened a few times. There was a few actors that are character actors I noticed in this film going, wait, I know you from movies. I've seen you in like the background of this, or oh, you had a small bit part in this, or whatnot. There were multiple actors that would appear in this movie that had that kind of draw to them, where it was, I recognize you, but from where? And this gentleman in particular, Mr. Marquette, was kind of the same situation. As that.
Mm-hmm. Now, there is one name that you should recognize, which is Doug Jones, the star of our movie. He actually plays Slenderman in this.
Ah, yes, good old Abe Sapien himself. Yes, for those of you who are fans of the Hellboy franchise, he plays our infamous Blue Guild do-gooder in that. He's also played a few other things. I think the one time he got to play himself, well, tentatively speaking, he immediately went to a demon and got his prosthetics back on, which was kind of hilarious. But yeah, Doug Jones plays our titular monster. Well, I can't even say titular. It depends on which country you're watching it in. But yes, and then there's a few other, like I said, there's a few other characters in it. But the one that actually got me, was the gentleman. Have you ever seen the Phantasm films?
No, but I've heard of them. That's the guy with the metal balls that have the sharp things that come out of it, and
yes. Yeah. The series started back in 1979. That was the first film, and it ran all the way up until the late 2010s, borderline 2020s, before the series was put on an indefinite hiatus. In the series Phantasm, the main villain is the Tall Man, who is played by Agnes Krim. And he plays the Undertaker, the tall man of that. And the last film of the Phantasm series, he wound up passing away, and so this he had a brief cameo where he appears in an asylum. And I actually really enjoyed this scene just because of the nice little homage to that. They walk into the asylum, and there's a bit of a glare, and they can't quite focus in on who this is, and they just see what looks like the Slender Man, and because he's tall and lanky, and somewhat dark clothing, and then the camera focuses in, and it's Agnes Krim, who says, "You've seen him, yes, the one who cannot be seen, etc." And they go, "Oh, okay, well, he's kind of crazy." They kind of shoo it away, and that's the end of his part in the movie. Okay,
so they got an interesting cameo into this then.
Yeah. The last film, that he made was in 2016, which would put this being a 2015 film, one of his very last. Technically, I think the last one that got released while he was still alive. Phantasm Ravager, the 2016 film, that was released just after his death.
Okay.
So I think, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that this was actually his last still kicking film role.
Well, how interesting that for what seems to be such a low on the lower side budget movie, they were able to get two big named actors for it. You know, the Doug Jones.
Yeah, probably where the entire budget went.
That's true. That's true.
You know, in many cases, I will quote the great Christopher Lee, who said, "Sometimes you do a project for nothing because you love the work." Infamously, Christopher Lee actually did not receive a single dime from making the Wicker Man movies. And he touted right up until his dying days, "I still have the contract, said that I received no money for this film." And he did it because he enjoyed the project. So I'm sure there are situations like Doug Jones or maybe Agnes Grimm, who they would work until their dying day, and maybe one or two of them, they really liked the idea of the project, and they would say, "Sure, I'll pop on. No worries." Especially if it's just a brief cameo like that. I could easily see a situation where Mr. Grimm would just kind of go, "Well, why not? I suppose I could do something."
Well, I mean,
walk on, get a free sandwich, and then walk off.
Look at the Spy Kids movies. I mean, that was low budget, and a lot of the actors only did it because they thought it was a fun idea, you know, and they knew the director. So it can be done. Like Spy Kids was huge, still is to this day. People still quote it, and
but that also goes into the idea of what kind of film is it. If it's a fun film, if it's a family film, you know, a lot of the big names in Spy Kids, they were known for other things, and they wanted to branch out and be more family friendly. So I could easily see that be a reason for a rebranding, you know. But you know, I could see it either way. Well, okay, all right. So, pardon me. Let me ask you this though. Serious question here.
Okay.
How bad did the found footage aspect make or break the film to you? Do you feel like it could have been better had it been 100% found footage, or do you feel like it would have been better if it was 100% not found footage? Like if they had just focused on and actually made a genuine movie as opposed to this quasi thing that they did? Because I was conflicted at I feel like I was conflicted on what the writers and the directors were trying to do. I feel like it was two different. They were trying to go in two different directions and trying to marry both ideas together.
Well,
so do you feel like this film should have been better if it was pure found footage or pure cinema?
Well, unfortunately, the thing is, it was pure found footage. Like everything, like they had multiple cameras going for the found footage aspect. Like there was one point where the main character, Milo, was sleeping on the couch. He had a camera on him, a camera in the kitchen, and a camera pointing at outside or something like that. There was 3 cameras at least, and they were all pointing in different directions so you could see what would happen. And so I think this movie was done 100% in found footage, and I think that if they had actually tried to mix the medias where, you know, maybe partial of it was found footage so we could get more jump scares out of Sunderman, and you know, have it so we're watching from over the shoulder of Milo or something, you know, something to add a bit more depth to it. Having it 100% found footage, I think, kind of killed it because they're trying too many different angles of the cameras, and it's just too much in too little of a space. where you could have just gotten away with just one camera standing still, watching as the people watch through the video camera.
Yeah, I think the one of the more glaring ones was where actually that very same scene where we actually get a really good glimpse of the Slender Man, at least for a moment. He has the projector on. Well, let me ask you, Anita. You have a projector. Where do you shine the projector? Do you shine it against the back wall, or do you shine it toward yourself?
Against a blank wall.
Ah, yes. Okay, then why did he continue? Because he did it 2 or 3 times. I want to say he only did it twice, but still, he did it. Every time he got his projector out, he would always have it turned toward himself, like he could really make out one. Why?
And that's what I mean.
And yeah, but like, and to go a step further, it was a projection of the room he was in.
And that's what I mean. Like, they're trying too many camera angles for a found footage movie to work. Like, it doesn't fit smoothly when you have one camera angle, like in the corner, one camera angle directed at you, one camera angle to the side, and they're all trying to show you found footage movies of the same room, trying to capture the same moment on all 3 cameras just to see if they can get a good spot of it. I mean, like, it works with Paranormal Activity because it's security cameras. You have one in the corner in one room, one in the corner in the other room, and sometimes those cross, sometimes they don't, but that works. Whereas here they were trying to fit 3 different angles into the same room, and it feels too cramped.
Yeah, no, I completely get you. Okay, now what was your favorite example of the found footage? Because I have my favorite. I think my favorite it was actually a really good use of the found footage. But what was your favorite use of found footage?
Probably when they turned the camera off. No,
in this yes.
Favorite.
My favorite part.
Favorite. If I had to pick one, it would have to be where Milo is in the backyard and he has the camera in his hand and he's going towards the woods in his backyard, and you can see Slenderman standing at the edge of the woods, and he's yelling at the Slenderman to fuck off. And he's just standing there in the middle of the yard, and you're just watching Slenderman watch him. And it was just this really kind of cool, tense moment where it's like, is something going to happen here? Is he going to get closer? Is Slenderman going to get closer? And I think like something like that, when you just have the one camera and you're watching the tension rise through that one camera, I think that it works better when you do something like that.
I think my favorite was a similar situation, although it did raise more questions than it probably should have. My favorite scene was whenever they were driving and the car breaks down. And so Milo gets out and he pops the hood and he's trying to figure out what's going on. Meanwhile, the dash cam is recording, and he closes the hood of the car, and for that brief instance of him closing it, the Slender Man is just all off in the corner on the side of the road, like just feet from him, staring. And obviously the Slender Man has no eyes, no mouth, no nothing, but you can tell he's just staring. And it was very, I thought that was very well done.
Well, that's what I like about Slenderman so much is, he has no features, and yet he's staring at you.
And you can tell the moment that he changes attention. He'll go from looking at you, and then without eyes, look at your friend right next to you, and you know definitively that he has changed targets. And so I did enjoy that. That's something that I really enjoy about these weeping angel kind of monsters. There's your Doctor Who reference for the episode. There you are. The very Whovian aspect of the Slender Man, whether it be the silence or the weeping angel, or there's another one back in the classic era, which was the creature could only appear in certain light, and so they got to play with light a lot. But yeah, no, regardless, it had this very, very Doctor Whovian quality to it, and obviously, as I just referenced, the silence, the Weeping Angels, they both take inspiration from the Slender Man, considering the time in which they came out versus when the creepypasta was first created. The silence, obviously, they look very much like the Slender Man, and you forget that you've seen them once you blink. And then you have the Weeping Angels that can only move when you blink. But if you see a recording of them, then they can glitch the camera out so that you no longer see them. And that's just a fascinating idea. But so it's a very otherworldly, and I appreciate it for that. What was the worst use of the found footage in this film?
I'd have to say him recording himself, watching recordings of another video. Because the whole point, the whole thing about Slenderman is because you can't see him normally, he leaves you alone until you can actually see him. So the whole thing, that the catalyst that causes this is that Milo is watching a recording of this family that's gone missing. And he starts seeing instances where, he can see the white face in the background or the suit or whatever. But for a good portion of this section of movie, it's just him staring blankly at the computer screen, going through the footage for hours. Obviously, they don't show you the hours upon hours that he went through, but it's insinuated that it's there, and it goes back to the realism thing. Without knowing that there's a reason to have your camera running, you wouldn't do it. You wouldn't film yourself watching recordings of something if you didn't know that there was a reason to film yourself watching these recordings.
As a man who has gone to Florida for vacation and has documented 5.5 hours of dust being collected on a broom because I accidentally left the camera running, you do not get those good shots by accident. You get the good shots because you set it up that way. I legitimately, I was playing the video camera. I was looking at the footage from the other day. Said, "Oh, okay, we're gonna go. Hey, where we're going? Waffle House, fantastic!" And we closed it, and I put it down on the top bunk. And apparently, I had hit the record button with my thumb when I put it up on the top bunk. And so we left, and 5.5 hours later, the camera has us coming back into the room, and that was it. And we did not realize this until I got the camera out the next day to record more, and the tape was all used up. And I went, what do you mean? No, it was a fresh tape. What are you talking about? And then we found out about the mistake. So, as someone who has first-hand experience in found footage, this is not found footage.
No.
This is just not found footage.
No. This is deliberately setting up your camera to record yourself when you know you're about to do tedious amounts of work and having no inkling of an idea of what you're even doing, why you're even doing it.
Mm-hmm. And the camera is always dead center.
Yeah.
And the staging is moved around the dead center of the camera.
Yep.
again, that's not how found footage works
Really
at
not.
all.
Really
You want to do found footage, and the camera has been tipped over, is recording the broom, and you hear the conversation, and you get some shadow on the wall, and during this entire time, maybe maybe somebody bumps into it, and it adjusts the camera slightly so you can get a little better of an angle at it, and that's like the extent of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That's a glorified maybe, and that is nope, not at all what happens. So. Now, on a scale of worst found footage movie you've ever seen to, I assume which one was it you said you really enjoyed? Was it Paranormal?
it was Paranormal.
Was that the one that you really enjoyed?
Yeah, and
Okay.
Blair Witch.
So between the grand poobah of found footage and the worst one you've ever seen, as far as found footage is concerned, where would you rate this?
Surprisingly, I haven't actually watched a lot of found footage movies past the Paranormal Activity movies. So if I had to choose like worst to best, this one would probably be on the lower end of the scale. Just because it's hard to watch found footage movies sometimes because of this reason. And honestly, like after I finished the Paranormal Activity movies and I watched the Blair Witch movie, I just kind of lost interest after that because the whole medium of found footage was slowly dying, and you don't see it as much anymore. Like, sure, there's a couple out there. We watched one recently about that ghost hunting team going into the asylum. That was a found footage movie. That was a fairly good found footage movie. But I just feel like I haven't watched enough of them to really put it anywhere on the scale aside from at the bottom,
No. That's a fair statement. Now, what about as a movie in general? Where would you rate it? From something such as Scared to Death, which almost bored you to tears, to Citizen Kane, one of the greatest films of all time. Like, where would you rate this on your plethora? Is this one of the worst you've ever seen?
It's definitely above Bigfoot versus Megalodon. Definitely above that.
Mouth frogs. Home. For listeners at home, the Bigfoot versus film series, that is a film series that we started and very quickly realized we could not finish. It was so atrocious that we honestly said no and moved on to other films. Halfway through the first one.
We weren't even halfway through. We were like maybe 10 minutes in.
Oh, you know what? You're right. It was probably about 10, maybe 15 minutes in, and we both went, nope.
We noped the fuck out of that.
And the worst, yes, we did. And it was borderline, what's the term? Machinima. Where it looked like someone, where they took video game footage and then put voice actors to it. That was basically what the vibe was for the Bigfoot versus Megalodon film, and we couldn't do it. Yeah, that's it. I appreciate the attempt, but no, thank you.
An attempt was made. It was failed, but it was made. Free on Tubi if you want to watch it.
Oh yes, it's on Tubi. Poor Tubi.
Or not to be.
So yeah, okay. Very much in a few cases not to be. I give Tubi a hard time, but honestly, it's actually very good.
It's got some good titles on there.
I really do like it.
Like fucking Silence of the Lambs is on there now.
It's even got bad titles. Mm-hmm.
Doctor Who's on there.
And I do have my grievances with Tubi simply because they will take things off, but just wait a while, it'll come back around. It's cyclical. And I can appreciate it for that, because then it kind of gives you a reason to watch the film.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's, oh no, it's expiring soon. We got to watch it before it expires and it's taken off streaming. Tune in same time next year, and it's back on.
Can I say something about that real quick? I have seen some of the same movies on the leaving soon list for the last year. They're not leaving. They're not going anywhere. They're staying put.
They fell through the digital footprint. That's funny.
Tubi forgot that they were supposed to leave.
No, they extended the contracts and then just forgot to take them off the thing.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
So we've talked about the movie itself. Here's a question for you. What was your least favorite moment that the characters did? Not about the filming, but the actual events that happened.
So you're asking what was the
worst,
scene
dumbest,
where the logic failed?
Yeah.
Okay. I would have to say it's the hotel scene, the hotel confrontation between the cameraman, the news reporter girl, and the blonde man, who apparently is going to wind up being a fellow reporter. I was a little confused on
his relationship
outside of something of that nature. But the confrontation in the hotel was idiotic, because they get into a fight, and to avoid spoilers, I won't say why, but it made no sense. And okay, I will mention this part simply because it happens early enough in the movie. It's not really a spoiler. The cameraman records the reporter lady in her off time. He had happened to have been in the grocery store. He saw her and went back out to his car and recorded her, and kind of made fun of the fact that the bag ripped and she dropped her groceries. And the boss, the blonde man, who is a tower of good decision making, decided that the cameraman Milo was stalking her, and proceeded to fight him. And during the scuffle, got mad enough that he picked up the microwave, ripped it from the wall, and almost beat his head in with this microwave, all because of that. That was probably the scene that I hated the most. The logic didn't logic for me at all.
I will say this, it was more than just the instance in the grocery store. He was pseudo-stalking her. There was a couple of different scenes where he's filming her. Anyways, but yes, no, that whole fight scene was like the way they describe it afterwards of why it happened. Sure. Okay, I guess. I don't want to give too much away, but I feel like it was just a sort of like just explaining it to explain it, like it's not that like it's because tensions are high or anything. It's because it has to do with A, B, and C. And you could have just left it at tensions were high and shit happens,
I detested it. I absolutely detested it. And if Slenderman, the operator, if Mr. Marble Hornet himself is out to kill them, then why, in that same scene, when the Slenderman decides to fling the door open and manifest in the room, does he not do anything about it to them? He just lets them and then immediately disappears. Like, the Slenderman was so inconsistent about what he wanted, why he wanted it, and when he was planning on doing it. And ultimately, the Slenderman himself did not kill a single person on screen. Not once in the entire film. he appeared and things would happen and they result in death. But he would never actually lash out and attack anyone at all.
Which is
So
extremely
he was very
interesting.
confusing. Yeah, it was very confusing.
Well,
I don't
okay.
know if he just does this or what. I had no idea, and it was not properly explained whatsoever.
So, counter to that, and I'm going to spoil this part in particular because I know that there is a whole website on Does the Dog Die? He kills the dog. He did do that.
But we do not see him do it.
No. That brings me into my stupidest moment is when they turn the cameras off. The the three of them are in a car. They had just gotten away from the hotel where your scene happened, and they're like, "Oh, what if we turn all the cameras off? We can only see him when they're in the when he's in the camera. So if we can't see him, maybe he has no power over us." So they turn the cameras off. They waked up, dog's dead. I mean, sure, logic-wise, that might make sense, but you're dealing with an entity that you don't know anything about. Don't assume the easiest...
Especially considering in that situation... Well, yeah, but also in that same situation... Again, and this goes back to the inconsistency. He's after the humans. Why does he care about the dog?
Because the dog was...
Sure, fine, the dog barks at him because the dog can see him, or at least know he's around. But that means that the Slender Man crawled into the locked car, killed the dog, left everyone else there, and then crawled back out the door, locked it back, and did that all while everyone else was asleep in this very same car.
Which means that this entity is toying with them.
Yes, but why? It doesn't... you see my problem. Is they don't explain enough as to the why for me to go, yes, of course.
So this is where...
It was simply a...
It was simply a...
no, it was simply a, what, assing fancy? Or what? Why did he decide that he was going to target them? That was the part that confused me most.
So this is where you would have to know the backstory. And unfortunately, I don't know enough about the backstory to really... I don't remember a lot of it because I read it when I was just a wee lass. But from what I can recall from playing like the video game, he just kind of targets the people who see him. Like as soon as you acknowledge he's there, you're his next victim. And they don't really explain that in the movie. You kind of have to piece it together. Because everything's fine up until the point that Milo sees the Slender Man in one of the home videos that he found. Everything's fine up until that point. As soon as he notices Slenderman and he points him out and says, "Oh, look," that's when shit starts to hit the fan. And it's just something that you either know or you have to try and piece together, or you just you don't understand it. And I think that when you're making a movie like this, you need a little bit more lore to back up what you're trying to present to the community. You cannot expect for everyone to watch this movie to know exactly what is happening, because I mean, like, I haven't heard of creepypasta in like a couple years now. It's a still active site, but I haven't heard anything new that's been coming from it. I only remember Slenderman because it was such a popular thing. But if you didn't know the original lore, if you didn't go out and seek it, if you haven't played the games, you wouldn't know. And you cannot expect the entire audience to know. Obviously, with some things there's movies and TV shows and video games that feed off of lore from other things, and they can get away with it. But something like this, with such a niche culture, I feel like you need to explain it more.
No, I definitely can, especially if you are relying on this stuff. That's why a lot of the early superhero films fail, is because they didn't explain enough. They assumed that you were already a comic book reader and you would get this. That's why a lot of the failed film franchises fail, because they expect you to be this. Remember, true believers. That's the infamous Stan Lee quote. As yes, true believers. Let's remember this character from this time. Oh, wonderful! He's here. You know,
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the big complaints about several of these type films, is that if you know the lore, then suddenly there are no surprises, or you get upset about the fact that they've changed so much about the lore. It's either one. You never get a satisfactory version of events, with the exception of maybe Lord of the Rings. I think the Tolkien films are one of the few exceptions to the rule. But it's kind of like if you go in knowing right off the bat who Luke Skywalker's father is, the big reveal uh, later on in the franchise is kind of a moot point.
Mm-hmm.
That it's kind of like flipping through the Bible and then turning to your friend and going, "I looked at the end. The devil did it," and your friend has no idea what you're talking about. What? What? You know, so it's a lack of information. I feel is a detriment in many cases.
And again,
And
like
this is, again, as you said, this is a prime example.
you can get away with it with certain things. 100%. It can be done.
Mhm.
Like the game itself, like you are only given visual cues. You're not given a real story about what's happened. You kind of have to piece it together yourself. But with Slenderman the Arrival, I think they did it in such a way that because you're exploring the world within you and you're able to piece together everything, it works because they give you the right cues. Whereas this, they don't. We don't know.
Well, they didn't.
We don't know
They
where
didn't
he
hold
first
your
came.
hand.
No,
They
they
also
didn't.
didn't know what to do.
Yeah, like they don't explain
Yeah.
how the first family found it. They all they s- well no they do at the end, but at the end they explain it. Like you can't. You have to give these cues early on in the movie.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree. I believe that this was a situation where the writer had, or maybe the director, someone had key scenes in their head that they wanted to film, and then wrote the script to accommodate in order to get from point A to point B to point C. So there were a few scenes in particular that felt like, okay, they genuinely wanted this to be a scene. And other scenes felt like nothing. It felt like padding.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in my personal opinion, I believe that this is a film that would have done better with another another run at a draft.
Yeah.
I think it was just one draft short of being a good film. Unfortunately, it just turned into mediocre at best.
It definitely had potential. Like I said, like it can be done. It just, you missed your mark on this.
Mm-hmm.
Which sucks because
Huh?
it's such an interesting concept. There's the mystery behind it of where it all began, and the thriller and the tension aspects of it, with tempers rising and the fear rising. But there's just so many blunders that you can't really enjoy it. You can't enjoy the fear that's supposed to be rising. With every time that he comes on screen, it's supposed to be this tense moment, this unsure thing, and yet it's you can't savor it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I have to agree with you on that one, unfortunately. Um, do okay, so how do I word this? Is there another creepypasta? Since you know this stuff more, obviously,
Mm.
than I do. Is there a creepypasta, another creepypasta you would like to see make the jump to the big screen or small screen or just screen in general? Is there another character that you think could possibly capture the zeitgeist quite how Slenderman has done in this niche culture?
Honestly, Jeff the Killer. Now, he was fucking scary. You know, you have this pale face guy with a huge smile and dark eyes, and he was a terrifying image to come across when you were just a little wee thing on the internet. And I think that, that would be a compelling story. Like, do like an origin story, or add some flair into it with him chasing after these people, just something almost along the same lines of Slenderman, but obviously its own story of just people happen upon him and read up on him and find out all this lore about him, and it's him trying to get them, like it's an interesting concept of a story, and it's fucking terrifying too.
Now is he supernatural as well, or no?
Oh, I think he was. It was kind of like one of those ghost stories that you would tell that, like, don't look in the closet late at night when it's pitch black out because you'll see him, kind of thing. Yeah.
Ooh, very Bloody Mary-esque.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I think
All right,
that one would be.
fantastic.
Yeah, I think he would be a good submission.
Well, well, I'll take your word for it. I wonder if he has a video game. Probably not. Who
Probably
knows?
not.
Again, my knowledge extends more to SCP stuff. The SCP Foundation and whatnot with their attempts to capture such monsters, and they break out or not.
Well, see,
So.
because you like the SCP stuff, I think you would like the creepypasta stuff, because it's kind of the same vein. SCP started as somebody who just went and made the story and said that something got out of containment, and it's this monstrous looking, terrifying thing that's going around, eating people. Creepypasta is essentially the same thing. Somebody just goes in, makes this story, builds up this world of lore, and suddenly you have fucking 10-year-olds crying in a corner because they saw Slenderman in the computer. So I think you would actually enjoy it. I would look it up.
I will make no guarantees, but at the very least, I have it on my radar, so I can dabble from time to time. So I'll do that. Since we're at the grand finale, then, Anita, what would you rate this film?
I would give this film probably... Okay, so I'm going to preface this by saying that while I personally do not like this movie, I do think that it is I do think that it could be a good gateway film. And I say that because while it does have its blunders, it does still have some tense moments. And if you are slowly immersing yourself into the genre of spooky scary, this might be a good film to start off with, because it doesn't just dunk you head in first kind of thing. Like, it slowly eases you in, and I think that's good for starting out. So I would give this a 3 out of 5.
3 out of 5?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So 3 whole tombstones.
3 whole tombstones.
I am going to be infinitely more pessimistic on this subject matter. No, I understand. Nice gateway, etc. I have to disagree. This would make me kind of at the series. I would probably see another Slender Man movie, think it was a sequel, even if it's not in the same vein, and go, oh, it's this thing. And quite possibly ignore it because of this film. So I would actually give it a 2. Now, it's not the worst film I've ever seen. No. I've seen far worse. But 2 out of 5. It is below average. It is, I can't say hastily put together, but it is not well thought out. It did damage any idea I would have to continue a franchise had a franchise been started. Because you said that there was more than just this one film, right? Like as in Slenderman as a whole, not of the Marvel Hornets saga, but as Slenderman movies are concerned. There are other Slenderman movies?
There are other Slenderman movies. There are also a couple of mockumentaries floating around. There are 2 games that I know of, Slender 8 Pages and Slenderman The Arrival. There's the creepypasta. I don't know if the original YouTube channel is still up. It might be. Go check it out if it is. But just, there's
and it
several
is
mediums.
Marble Hornet, yes?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, I feel as though this is a bad gateway. I feel that maybe if I try one of the others, I might actually get into Slenderman. But I have to give it a 2 because this failed on delivery.
I want to get you to play Slender The Arrival.
Well, I tell you what, Anita, you can look up my typewriter to your computer screen and we can try and play. I'll even loan you the mouse.
Beautiful.
I'll loan you the mouse. I know, seriously, I'd give it a shot. I really would. And I would not mind trying the other films in the franchise. I would not mind trying other Slenderman films, but if this was my only exposure to Slenderman, this is a huge turnoff. So I have to give it a 2 out of 5.
Yeah, no, everything else is fine. Go watch the other stuff. Don't watch this.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Well, gentle listeners, I do believe it is time for us to part ways.
Sinister, I love it.
Oh, yes. Well, it's always sad when I go. Oh, crocodiles here and all that. I will punish you, though. I do have a few frightfully terrible films of yesteryear for you. But I won't punish you yet. No, instead, I will have a good movie for us to watch next time. Sound good?
I mean, if I must.
Well, with any luck, you'll spare me another one of these atrocious monstrosities.
No. I revel in your pain.
No, nuts. I can tell. And so that will be the wrap for this episode of the Coffin Table Podcast. If you enjoyed our deep dive into the dark, be sure to rate, review, and share.
If you got a film for us to unearth, let us know. Follow us on social media for more chills and thrills.
Until next time, stay spooky and don't look under the bed.